So it's time for the announcement that you have been waiting for.
It is time for the announcement. We have not, in our typical style, we have not planned on how we would do this. Does it make sense? Because we have a press release. Would it make sense to read the press release and then start, which I do not have in front of me?
Okay, I will read the press release.
Okay.
I
will turn it over to you, Brian Griffiths, with a major announcement concerning the Red Maryland Network. Brian, please go ahead.
Red Maryland, Maryland's leading internet-based creator of Maryland political news and commentary, will be ceasing operations effective Thursday, June 4th. An FAQ regarding this closure is available. It's available at redmaryland.com. When Red Maryland started, we knew that Maryland needed coverage and discussion of state and local politics from a conservative perspective. It still does, said Red Maryland co-founders Brian Griffiths and Greg Klein in a joint statement. Despite nearly 13 years of effort on Red Maryland's part, so much of conservative media these days is focused on national politics and owning the libs, as opposed to cogent thought and discussion of campaigns and issues. Combine that with voters and consumers of media on social media devoting 98% of their attention to President Trump and his decisions and ignoring important issues at the state level, it felt like we were in a vicious cycle where our efforts are becoming more and more unrewarding. The reality for someone who donates their time and effort to a project like Red Maryland is that these conditions result in one thing: burnout. Red Maryland will continue normal operations, including coverage of Maryland's June 2nd primary, through the June 4th episode of Red Maryland Radio, which will be the 1,803rd and final podcast produced by Red Maryland. The show will also be broadcast on Facebook Live. Mr. Griffiths will be launching a new media venture called The Duckpin in June. More information is available at theduckpin.com, which can be focused on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Duckpin. He also will be continuing his column with the Capitol, as well as posting content on his personal Twitter and Facebook pages. Mr. Klein will focus on his legal practice and has no plans to blog or podcast beyond that, and then it goes into a bunch of additional other hoopla that you really don't need to know all that much about right now. Bottom line is that we're done.
Yeah,
we're done June 4th.
We're bringing the ship in the dock. I want to say, if I can, Brian, just have a few.
You may. The floor is yours.
Okay. That's the statement. That's what it is. We let a few of our very close friends and only a very few people know about this beforehand, and really almost all of them today. We could, I think the only other person before today that knew about this was Mark Nugent, who knew this. With this decision, by the way, let me what Brian said is the reason. We're burned out. This is a passion project that we've been doing for 13 years. And we set out, we've talked about this many times. We set out to have more local coverage and because there wasn't enough of that. And frankly, things have gotten worse. We can talk more about that later, but we're just burned out, for all the reasons that we stated. So that's the reason we do it. This decision was made back in February. Okay. Brian and I sat down and talked, and this is what we decided to do. We were planning on doing this earlier, but then the election got put off. The election is kind of the important end date because we've been working with candidates and supporting them, and we know that a lot of our readers will come to Red Maryland to get information about that primary particularly. So we wanted to service that because we put a lot of work and effort into that, and that's one of the things that we're most proud of here at Red Maryland that we've done. So that's why we're going to do that. So we'll have a few more shows. We'll have a chance to, talk and reminisce, and hopefully in our final show, we'll be joined by Mark. We haven't confirmed that yet, but we hope Mark will join us. And so we can, close the book. And I'm not going to do a lot of reflection here. We'll have time to do that, but that's why we're doing it. Okay. And we're going to have an FAQ.
It's already posted on the website if you want to go read it.
Yeah. So let me, now that we've completely and candidly told you why we're doing what we're doing, let me state for the record before people start making stuff up, even though I know they will anyway. This is not because Brian and I had some sort of disagreement. though the first segment might make you wonder. No, it is not that. We came to this decision back in February. It was a mutual decision. It is not. Because we have any disagreements or parting of the. Brian and I are fine. We just got together and decided it's time. That's basically the way we sat down and we said it's time. Okay, so we're not fighting. Brian and I are fine. This is not because of any financial issue. It's not. I mean, we've been funding this. A lot of people have been very gracious with that. We've been and we appreciate that. All that's gone back into Red Maryland. So that's fine. We're all fine. This doesn't have anything to do with money. It doesn't have anything to do with drama. None of us are sick. None of us are, getting political pressure from outside to stop talking. No one's silencing us or any of that nonsense. This is just a decision we made to stop doing it. So if you hear that stuff and look, there are going to be 3 reactions that we get to this, I expect. People who don't care, which is fine. People who are at some level are sad to hear it or disappointed or, unhappy at some level. And we appreciate that. We know we have the support of a lot of great people and don't think we don't appreciate that, but times come. I mean, again, this is a passion project. This isn't how we feed our families. This isn't what we do for a living. We have other things on our time. And, we've been doing this for a long time. And we just, as Brian pointed out, as we said in our joint statement, we're just burned out. So it's not anything like that. So if you hear something, and the third group of people who I know are already out there who are going to be dancing in the streets, who are going to have all kinds of schadenfreude about this, which, we kind of relish at some level. Just do me a favor. If you guys are folks who appreciated what we do and you see some of that nonsense, do me a favor and just straighten them out. Okay. Just let them know that when they start telling stories about how, Red State fired us or something, even though we don't have any relationship with Red State. And by the way, Brian and I own in partnership Red Maryland. We own everything related to Red Maryland. So, there's nobody can fire us even if they wanted to. So it has nothing to do with anything like that. And I'm sure there'll be all kinds of conspiracies. So I just want to make that perfectly clear. And just say again, for folks who've supported us, thank you very much. It has been, I'm personally very proud of a lot of things we've done over the last 13 years. We've done a lot of stuff. We haven't accomplished all the things that we hope to in a lot of ways. And we've talked about this at length before. So, media, our political discussion is worse than it was when we started. We wanted Red Maryland to be engaged in an intellectual marketplace of ideas, pushing conservative ideas. And the reality is we live more and more in a world where people click like on articles that they never read. More and more we're getting in arguments with people on Facebook about why they shouldn't have to read the articles. And it's like, why are we doing this? And it gets old after a while. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Thank you to everybody who supported us, and to those who hate us, enjoy.
I'll just add on here. Yeah, Greg said a lot, obviously, and everything that he said was right. It's very hard to engage in something that we engage in and have the political landscape be what it is. I'm not necessarily talking about the back and forth, the confrontational nature. Okay, that doesn't bother me all that much. We have always kind of had a certain confrontational nature with Democrats, with people in the opposing party, or with people, even people within our party. I think my biggest frustration is the same that Greg has, and that it just becomes such a pain in the ass to get people to focus on the things that matter. It's that 98% who want to talk Trump, 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 national, 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 all the time. And we can't, when we talk about things like tax caps in counties, when we talk about things like school board elections, when we talk about General Assembly policy, things that are very important, people don't care. And when you're talking about Red Maryland, and this is something that has been a Maryland-focused product for a long time, okay? And look, there have been forays into talking about national stuff. I'm as guilty of it as anybody, okay? But at the end of the day, we knew who we were. And we weren't going to try to get all the clicks to talk about Trump all the time. We weren't going to we weren't going to follow the herd. We were our own people, and we still are our own people, obviously. And, we're not going to do something. We're not going to support something. We're not going to write in a way that doesn't provide, enlightenment to the things that we care about, but also enjoyment. As Greg said, it's a passion project. Yeah. It's something that we have enjoyed. We started as activists. We will continue to be activists. So we will continue to be conservatives. We will continue to try to fight for the issues that we care about. Greg's not going to start all of a sudden liking cyclists because Red Maryland is ending. He's going to hate cycling for the rest of his life. Okay? What you saw on here was has never been an act.
Not to mention,
okay,
right?
We are who we are. I'm the same guy in person that you see that I am on here, and whether you like it or don't like it, tough. And Greg's the same way. Like Greg said, we're not going to go into a real deep, melancholy look in the past. Right. We still have 5 weeks of shows to do. And that's part of the reason we made this decision now, because we didn't just want to drop it on everybody and be like, peace out, we're out of here. Right. We wanted to let people know in advance that a decision was made.
Right.
We wanted to let people know why those decisions were made. And we still have platform for the next couple of weeks to talk about the things that need to be talked about before the election. We can create any misconstrued things that may come out. Because look, I already know some of the players who are going to lie and who are going to create conspiracy theories and are going to do this, that, and the other thing. Unfortunately, we are the only people on the right in Maryland who have been successful at this. There's nobody left but us. You could almost argue that there's only a handful of blogs that actually get any play at all. Obviously Maryland Reporter, Maryland Matters are kind of different. They're not playing the same sport we are, if that makes any sense. We were the first really to, big group, effort, the first renowned effort, the first podcasts, the first video casts, the first blog in the world to have an Air Force, if you remember that. And we'll talk more about that stuff as we go through the next 5 weeks. But, we are leaving at our peak. We did not want to continue to do this if it felt like a slog. And one thing that Greg noticed first, I will admit that, and then I kind of came to agree with him on it, is the fact that what we do here is very cyclical.
Yeah.
And at some point you start writing the same things over and over again.
Yeah. You're linking to your past articles,
Yeah. And
same arguments over and over again. Yeah.
At some point you just kind of got to do something else. Greg's retiring. Greg's walking away from the game. Okay. What?
Yeah.
Well, you're shaking your head like
I'll still be on Twitter. I'll still have opinions on Twitter.
Okay. Well,
but I'm not going to be doing this in some other form. You're going to do something different in this vein. So I'll let you talk about that. But yeah, you're right. I'm not going
I mean, my new venture, the duckpin.com, is not going to be necessarily locally political focused. I'm going to write things about I want to write about. Okay. And when you write for Red Maryland and you write for a site that has a laser focus, this is what we do. Then you're kind of boxed into some of the content. And there are things I want to write about, topics that I haven't gotten a chance to write about. And you may like that stuff, you may not like that stuff. There will always be a local politics component to it because that's in my DNA. Okay. So and my site, it's not necessarily going to be locally focused. It's going to have a local contingent. There will be additional people. It's not just going to be the Brian show. I'll be the publisher, but there will be other people who will be part of that operation as well. So it'll be something new. And if it works, it worked great. If it doesn't, whatever, but, and before people ask, no, we didn't really consider this continuing as what would essentially be a one-man operation. It was talked about.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't seriously considered.
Yeah,
because this is a collaboration. Red Maryland's always been a collaboration, and as Brian pointed out, not only do we have a laser focus, but we've got, Red Maryland is, and I know this sounds grandiose, but in our minds, this is the reverence that we have for it. It's an institution. It's a brand. Okay. Brian and I have said many, many times, we feel as though we are trustees of this. We've collaborated with an awful lot and continue to collaborate with an awful lot of very, very talented people. And we self-regulate. We don't, I know some people will say, I don't believe that, but we do rein each other in, and we do have that back and forth of collaboration. And, the idea that it would be one person. I mean, the fact is, if I just kept doing a Red Maryland and Brian went and did something else, he would still be associated with Red Maryland, whatever was going on at Red Maryland, and vice versa. I think Mark Nugent still, even though he hasn't been with us since 2015, still gets associated with us. He tries very hard to distance himself from us, in fairness. But he's still associated with us, as are other folks. So, and we put our names to things. We're not doing this anonymously. We're not using nom de plumes from bad sci-fi movies. We're putting our names to things because these are ideas that we're putting forward and we stand behind. And you know what? I can say personally, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this tonight. Personally, there's a price to pay for that. Professionally, there's a price to pay for that. Being a conservative in Maryland and doing what I do for a living, there's a price to pay for that. And I was willing to do that because I believed in what we were doing. And certainly we had control over that. So the idea that the brand would go on with just one person and not the collaboration was not something any of us were on board for doing. And look, Brian was blogging before Red Maryland. He's blogging, he can do whatever he wants. God bless him. I think the world, as I told him privately, the world deserves the unfettered Brian Griffiths. And, I wish him well. And by the way, you will not hear any comments from me about it. So he's going to do his thing, and God bless him. And, we'll get more details of logistics or whatever, but I'm learning more about what he's going to do tonight because that's all on him. So I wish him well.
Yeah, I appreciate that, of course.
Sure.
And look, hey, there'll always be a home for you at the Duck Pen if you want to come back.
But that is very tempting. That is very tempting and very gracious of you. Thank you.
And look, like I said, there are things that I'm sure that Greg would want to write about in a different place than Red Maryland. Greg has lots of interests, other than Red Maryland, other than the Raiders even. So I mean, it's when you have, like you said, when you are associated with Red Maryland, there is a pigeonhole, and when you are writing for Red Maryland and you're not doing your other thing, anything else, you are pigeonholed. with that thing. And look, there have been times, Greg, I talked to Greg about a year ago. I don't think I've ever said this on the show before. I talked to Greg about a year about starting another podcast that was independent of Red Maryland.
Right.
Because there were other things I wanted to do, other things I wanted to talk about other than just state and local politics. And it wouldn't have been a fit on Red Maryland. That's why I stopped the air raid when I did, because I realized that it was starting to fit less and less every time I did a show with our raison d'etre here at Red Maryland.
Right.
And now if I want to go do a podcast about something else, I can do that. I have my own thing. So
just go.
Yeah. So I encourage you, please indulge me. Go to theduckpin.com. You can sign up for email alerts there. And it's on Substack, and I'll talk more about that. Once I launch once we launch there, I'll explain why we did that and lots of other stuff. The key thing is this, okay? Couple points here. One, the last ever Red Maryland poll launches at midnight. Okay? The last one.
Poll.
There will be a May poll. There will be no more after that.
Right.
Okay? And we asked a couple questions that were related to the shutdown and sort of things like that. Okay?
I cannot wait. I cannot wait for those open-ended responses, by the way.
We're literally asking for it.
All our audience to just keep it as classy as always. That's all I want.
There will be, as we said, 5 more shows. Okay.
Yes.
There will be stories. There will be things written. Everything's going to be normal. We've seen in the comments, will we still endorse people? Maybe. I don't know. Will we do
today? We published.
Yeah. Will we do a debate about something somewhere? I don't know. Maybe, maybe there's a race we can do a debate for, one more debate. I don't know. We haven't thought that far ahead yet.
Ballots have already gone out. I'd hasten to point out too.
I know. So, I would suggest that, a lot of endorsements would not be forthcoming from here, but the muse may strike us. You never know.
And to that point, our endorsement policy, we don't endorse in every race, and we only endorse when we all are unanimous on it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when it was Brian and I, or when it was 3 or 4 or 5, how many senior editors we had at any given time. And if we don't, then we don't. And not every race gets an endorsement. I think it happens less and less because we were a little more free with it 7 years ago and kind of got burned by it. At least I thought so. So don't hold your breath. But hey, look, there's lots of information. We have about a lot of great candidates and a lot of primaries who want your support. And if you go to redmaryland.com, click on our election tab, there's tons of information that we've been doing. As I mentioned at the beginning here, the reason we're staying open through the primary is because providing that primary election information and supporting our candidates is one of the most important missions that we've had here at Red Maryland, to support Republican and conservative candidates. And we know, because we do have the data, that a lot of Republican voters come to our site to get information about those candidates. And we know that there's never enough information about all these candidates. And as somebody who's interviewed and talked to and dealt with candidates throughout the state, been a former candidate myself back in the horse and buggy days, it's tough to be a candidate. There's all kinds of different people who run in our party. It's really exciting if you get to meet them. Some are better than others. Some are out there. Some are, have all different points of view. But there's some really great people who deserve your support. And I think one of the proudest things that we've done, that I've been associated with, or that I'm proud of Red Maryland for doing, is supporting all these candidates in a way that literally nobody else in the state does. And including our state party, frankly. And so that's why we're staying on through there. But, somebody else is going to have to do it after that, I guess.
Yeah, it's like, we've carried the torch for 13 years. There have been people who have come and gone doing this. Some have moved to Delaware. Some have died. Some have become bootlicking Democrats. It's like, it is what it is. And we're going to move forward, and we're going to do what we want to do. And, at some point, I think that at the end of the day, we both felt a responsibility, a Atlas-like responsibility to keep this thing going. I think as far as we could.
It felt, and I think to take your mythological metaphor a step further, I think we felt like we've gone from Atlas to the guy who keeps rolling the boulder up the hill. Sisyphus. We've gone from Atlas to Sisyphus, which is why we're like, okay. And what's frustrating is sometimes we feel not only like Sisyphus, but feel like we're closer to the bottom than the beginning. And we thought with the internet, this was a way you didn't have to have a radio station, you didn't have to have a newspaper, you could get ideas out, you could talk about local stuff, you can engage people. Social media was another way to do that. What we didn't expect to happen was that there's websites and there's blogs, and eventually there'll be podcasts. So we were way ahead of the curve with that. But they're all going to talk about national stuff too. So we underestimated that. So that's part of our frustration. But so anyway, we're just keep saying the same things over.
Yeah, there will be more to be said. You will see additional reflection on this in the next coming weeks. And as you said, we will the June 4th show will be a lot of swimming in Planet Us as we turn the lights off for the last time. So, so if somebody asked, why I was wearing my New World Order shirt today, that's why, because it is a New World Order. It does change everything about Red Maryland, and frankly, it changes a lot about state politics, because we're not going to be here to do what we do anymore. Not to sound too braggadocious, but
no one's ever accused.
But we've moved the ball a lot. We were the first people to endorse Governor Hogan, and we were on the bus before there was a bus, as we like to point out. So,
yeah. Look how
hey, but and it's funny because this shirt actually relates to one of the reasons why we that I that kind of a long-term reason, something I think about a lot as it relates to why we're shutting down. This actually goes back to, I think, the 2016 convention, where I wore this shirt, clearly a professional wrestling t-shirt, something that has been in the public vernacular for 20 years. And a Central Committee member who attended the convention honestly asked me if I supported the New World Order, like building burgers and stuff like that. It's like, what am I doing here? Where have I gone wrong? Yeah. And I think that's kind of a microcosm, I think, of the decision that we ultimately made, that that kind of led us to this road today.
You get feelings like that more and more when we read the comments on our Facebook page. I mean, again, I go back to this because it's just an example that sticks in my head, but we seriously got in an argument with a guy because we wanted people to click and read the article, and he insisted in many, many words and many, many comments that people are too busy to read the articles. Yeah. I'm like, well, I mean, we could just make memes that will get lots of likes. And by the way, it would, if that's all we cared about. And that's the other thing. The media landscape today is horrible. It's terrible. All of the incentives are to be super hyperbolic, super over the top, super angry. Just follow the audience towards the least common denominator, not to engage the other side in any sort of back and forth or marketplace of ideas. All of that is discouraged. All of that, and then if you're not completely supportive of the president, then, which I'm more supportive than Brian is, no secret about that. But that's not the reason we're stopping. Let's be clear before. Because of,
I wasn't voting for the president whether Red Maryland continued or not. I think
because of Brian's incessant never Trumpism. That's not the reason why we're doing this.
Somebody will say it on the interwebs.
I know that's why I bring it up and chuckle, because I'm hoping that somebody who may say, "Hey, I'm really sorry to hear you go." I hope they will see that and say, "You're an idiot. These guys talked about why they're leaving. They've been doing this for 13 years. Maybe cut them some. Maybe come on break. You didn't
and that's
like.
why we've been talking about it for half an hour tonight. That's why there's an FAQ. If people have more questions, we'll answer more questions. I don't care.
By the way, if you're wondering, do we get credit for doing this for 13 years? No.
No,
not at all.
I will say this.
People come in and can, soar right to the top who were Democrats 3 years ago, didn't live in the state. It doesn't matter. So whatever. It's fine. Hey, you know what? God bless you.
It's funny. I've already seen a bunch of things on Twitter about it.
Stand by for my Twitch page where I play Civ 6.
It's funny because it's already gotten attention. Rob Lang's tweeted about it. Maryland Matters has written about it. Yeah.
Oh God, Maryland Matters. And well, I'm there. I mean, it's a victory for them. I mean, we've written about them. Nobody picked up on that. The
tweet actually says, "Wow, this is big and surprising news." So,
yeah.
It is big and surprising news. We know.
It happens.
And by the way, if you've been watching the last couple of weeks, there were some hints in there that you might have, if you were very subtly picked, that were so subtle you probably didn't
rewatch all of those.
Yeah.
Yes, there were hints all over, like Lost. You would understand it now if you go back and rewatch it. Yeah. Yeah. No, there were a couple times where Brian's like, "Man, I thought you were going to just pull the plug tonight." I'm like, No, it's fine.
No, Red Maryland is not for sale. That is a question that we have in the comments.
This is a great question. We own it. It will be. I actually own redmaryland.com. We own the partnership. Brian and I own the website, own all the intellectual property. It will be safeguarded forever. Mm-hmm. And if anybody tries to use this brand without our permission, we know about litigation. So let me. You'll be getting notice from me. Do not worry about that. So, though, I mean, if you made the right offer, I guess we'd think about it. But it's not going anywhere. And to that point,
there's going to be a lot of zeros after that. That's all I can say.
If there were enough zero, I mean, everything has a price. We're capitalists after all. And to that point, redmaryland.com will be up even after June 4th for a while as a resource, because we know from the traffic, people read stuff that we wrote 10, 15 years ago. 15 years ago? Have we been doing it that long?
13 years
ago. All the time. So our friends over at the Liberty Alliance, who could not have been any cooler about this, are like, okay, that's cool. Just let us know, just keep it up there as long as you want. And, if you change your mind, you can always come back. So it'll be up there for a little while, not forever. And I think with our social media, we've got some plans of how we'll transition some of that. We don't want to waste that resource. Brian's got a project he'll promote. I'm sure I'll throw a couple, forwards in there as well. But the
question actually, will we release the Patreon?
Doing Red Maryland. Just
question in the comments, will we release the Patreon episodes to the public? I don't think we've talked about that yet, honestly.
No. If you weren't a patron, you didn't get them.
Okay.
And by the way, there are unreleased Patreon episodes that we never released. The lost episodes. I don't know what's going to happen with them.
Some of them might get relitigated on this show between now and May 16th.
Some of them, when we recorded them, I said, you know what? Come back in a couple months and let me know if you really want this released. So I don't know what will happen. We haven't decided that.
Yeah. So, but if people have questions, redmaryland@gmail.com, 410-205-4875. If you have questions, we will answer them. We will do whatever we can. Okay. Because look, we have nothing to freaking hide.
Oh, and by the way, we'll do a whole show of you guys saying "F you, I'm glad you're gone" messages too. We
reveled in that hate.
If you want us to be more comfortable with our decision, fill the voicemail up with that. That'd be great. Maryland Matters, man. Now I'm mad hearing that. Those guys. I hate that they win, but they win. I guess.
Yeah, they didn't really win. We went out on top.
Nobody on our side wants to fund what the left is doing with Maryland Matters. So you get what you get. I mean,
we are appreciative of all our patrons, but
we did our best.
Yeah. So, and look, there will be, there are questions about things like, because the question hasn't, we've anticipated the question, what's going to happen to the Red Maryland Leadership Conference? I got the right to keep doing it under a different name. What's going to happen to the polls? I have the right to keep doing, the awards rather. I have the right to keep doing them under a different name. Will I exercise that right? Maybe. I don't know. It's not really in mood for planning a conference in this current pandemic environment. I'll tell you that much. But
yeah, and by the way, if you were wondering, hey, they've never mentioned having another conference. Well, that's because we said in February we were doing this, and then all this happened.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's that. And we are happy to answer any more questions that you may have.
Now I got to go on Twitter. By the way, there's a passage of scripture that I always came back to. I'm going to save that for another night.
Okay.
I always came back to when I came to my decision, but I'll save that for another night.
Like I said, I
have a feeling we'll get comments that will set that up perfectly.
We will have plenty of opportunity to swim in Planet Me, particularly on June 4th, but also between now and that as well.
If we must.
And
I really do. We haven't confirmed Mark for that final episode or for one of the final. I hope he does come, and he has expressed an interest to do that, and it wouldn't be the same without him.
No, I agree. Well, this is a good time to wrap up.
Assuming we don't offend, don't we say anything too offensive to the administration that he is not able to. So it's not very hard to do that. And we'll try.
So thank everybody for watching tonight. Thank everybody who has watched us over the years. We're not leaving yet, but we got one foot out the door. Okay.
I got senioritis big time. What are you talking
about? Go to redmaryland.com for all things Red Maryland, including the brand new FAQs about the end of Red Maryland, which will answer some additional questions that haven't been addressed here. Facebook.com/Red Maryland, Twitter @Red Maryland, Instagram @Red Maryland. Please share this show. There's a lot going on in this show that is meaningful. And look, we may even isolate the last half hour of the show just as its own show to kind of isolate the part where we're out of here. So as again, the email address redmaryland@gmail.com, phone and text 410-205-4875.
What's that number?
410-205-4875, and we will feature your comments in a future Red Maryland Network program.
Don't disappoint us, folks.
Yeah. I'd say final thoughts, but the entire last 37 minutes has been a final thought. So for Greg, I'm Brian. We'll see you next week. Thank you. You have been listening to Red Maryland Radio on the Red Maryland Network.
Oh, radio.